Can I play piano for a meal? You won't believe this music legend's backstory. In a shadowy alley of New Orleans, a haunting melody drifted through the air, wrapping around passers-by like a dizzying fog. Those who paused were drawn in, their eyes wide with wonder. The pianist, an old man with wild white hair and a tattered fedora, seemed to channel something otherworldly as his fingers danced across the keys of a battered upright piano. This was no ordinary street performer. Whispers circulated that he could summon ghosts from the songs he played. Just last week, a local news team shaking with both fear and excitement reported on a mysterious sound echoing from the nearby cemetery. Music that seemed to rise from the very earth itself. Some claimed it was the spirit of the legendary bluesman who once graced those very streets, still searching for his lost melody. This enigmatic connection loomed over the city like a dark cloud, casting shadows in corners where light dared not tread. People began flocking to the alley, each eager to witness this strange spectacle. As dusk settled, the air grew thick with secrets. A curious crowd formed, eyes glinting, eager ears open as they leaned closer. You could feel a collective breath as a woman, clutching a crumpled dollar bill, stepped forward. She dared to ask the old man, "Can I play piano for a meal?" The moment hung still, hearts racing, all eyes glued to the pair. The old man's gaze bore into hers. Was it skepticism, amusement, or something deeper? Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the crowd shifted forward, the tension soared. The air crackled, electric with anticipation. Would he let her play? What secrets lay buried in this aged piano, waiting for the right hands to unlock them? The old man finally nodded, a sly smile creeping across his face. The crowd gasped, then fell silent. With a shaky breath, the woman moved to the bench, her heart banging in her chest like a drum. But as she placed her fingers on the keys, the ground beneath them vibrated with a deep, resonant hum, a sound that seemed to echo through time itself. Eyes widened in shock. What would happen next? Would this simple act of playing unleash the legend trapped in the strings of the piano? Would the spirits from the cemetery join in, haunting them with tales long forgotten? Only the music would tell. As her fingers brushed over the yellowed keys, a strange chill swept through the crowd. The air thickened, laden with expectation. Each note she struck seemed to peel back layers of the night, revealing moments lost to time, laughter, tears, and echoes of sorrowing melodies from the past. The woman closed her eyes, surrendering to a force greater than her. The first notes rolled out like a gentle wave, sweeping over the assembled crowd. Some members of the throng swayed, entranced. A pair of street performers exchanged bewildered glances, their painted faces frozen in mid-laughter. Nearby, a man with a weathered camera raised it slowly, as if fearing to disrupt the moment by capturing it. The enchantment was palpable, wrapping around everyone like a warm blanket, but as the music deepened, an unsettling tone crept into her playing. The bright, lively rhythm twisted into something darker, more complex, like shadows gathering at dusk. The old man shifted on his bench, his expression morphing from amusement to something akin to alarm. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing, as though trying to decipher an ancient riddle spoken through the music. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the entrance of the alley, a heavy footfall, much too energetic for the natural drift of the night. The crowd turned as one, curiosity igniting in their eyes. Emerging from the gloom was a tall, burly figure dressed in a long leather coat. A low whistle escaped his lips as he approached, slow and deliberate, his gaze locked on the piano and its new musician. The air crackled with tension. The pianist continued, pushing through her discomfort, reaching deeper into the piano's soul. Each note now felt like a mournful cry. The stranger paused, his brow furrowing, as if he recognized something crucial, the echoes of a melody he had long yearned to revisit. "Stop playing!" he shouted, cutting through the enchantment like a knife. "You don't know what you're messing with." Gasps erupted from the crowd, faces shifting from wonderment to a blend of fear and intrigue. The woman's fingers faltered mid-phrase, and she opened her eyes. Confusion blanketed her features, but she felt an undeniable allure to continue. Something within her urged her on, the resonance in the air blending against her will as though the music demanded that she press forward. The old man rose, waving a gnarled hand. "Let her play!" he roared, his voice than thunder echoing in the narrow space. "She may be the one to wake them." The crowd shifted, anticipation building once more as the stranger's face turned an alarming shade of furious. "You don't understand. That piano, it attracts them." His words sank into the hearts of the audience, lingering like a cold sweat. "What do you mean?" someone in the back called, voice trembling. Suddenly, a deafening chord resonated from the piano, causing every spectator's chest to vibrate as if struck by a ghostly wind. Shadows twisted along the alley walls, awakening the city's dark legends. Whispers began to swirl, merging with the haunting music. "Whatever happens, don't stop playing," the old man warned, eyes scanning the shadows, fear seeping into his weathered features. Fueled by a mix of adrenaline and instinct, the woman pressed her fingers down again, striking a fierce new note. The crowd held its breath. Whatever simmered beneath the surface was about to spill over, and she could feel it, but the stranger moved closer, his voice low and urgent. "You have to turn back. It's not just music, it's a doorway." With that, the shadows deepened, creeping nearer as the echoes from the cemetery grew louder, intertwining with the music and swirling around them like a wild storm. What had she unwittingly summoned from the depths of the night? The melody surged, and in that moment, she realized, this was only the beginning. As darkness wrapped itself around the last fading notes, the crowd leaned in, breathless with dread and excitement. What was destined to come forth now? Would she banish the spirits, or awaken something far more terrifying? As the final sounds from the piano reverberated against the alley walls, the shadows stirred. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, growing louder, charged with fear. People shuffled back, their faces illuminated by the dying glow of streetlights. The air was electric, a mix of anticipation and dread. The tall stranger stepped forward, his presence looming like a dark cloud. His leather coat billowed behind him, the edges fraying as if touched by unseen forces. "You have to stop. It's not just a piano, it's a beacon." Each word poured from his lips with urgency, a desperate plea to anyone who would listen. Confusion painted the crowd's expressions as they shifted their gaze between the stranger and the woman at the piano. She felt their eyes like hot beams, but oddly, she was compelled to play a magnetic pull that drowned out the chaos. "Listen to me," he shouted again, desperation clawing at his voice. "You're drawing them in." With every note, the music twisted, weaving an intricate web that seemed to pulse with life, tethering unseen spirits to the moment. Goosebumps danced across her arms, and for a heartbeat, she felt more than the notes. She felt their stories, their pain, their longing for release. A sudden gust of wind swept through the alley, sending chills skittering across her spine. The crowd gasped as shadows morphed, taking on shapes. Half-formed figures melted into view, pale faces and hollow eyes rising like a fog from the ground, drawn to the melody she played. "Back away!" the stranger shouted, his voice cutting through the growing darkness. But it was too late. The disembodied whispers enveloped the alley, rising and falling in time with the music, a haunting chorus of grief and yearning echoing her every note. The woman's heart pounded against her ribs. She found herself caught between fear and an overwhelming need to understand. Who were they? What stories did they carry? A wave of melancholy crashed over her, and she pushed through, finding an ancient sorrow in her chords, deep and resonant. The taller figure shuddered, his face twisting into a mask of fear. "You have to pull back. Find the right key, stop summoning them." As if the piano spoke back, a low hum vibrated beneath her fingers, compelling her to play louder, to summon the spirits forth. In that moment, the old man's voice cut through the haze. You have the power. Don't be afraid of what they want. The crowd's unease shifted, a blend of hope and trepidation tightening their shoulders. Faces lit up with wonder, confusion melting into curiosity. Some moved closer, their breaths coming in quick gasps, but suddenly, a figure lunged from the shadows, a specter, ethereal and translucent, its eyes piercing. The crowd recoiled. The woman faltered for a second, her fingers hovering above the keys. The spirit reached out, an anguished wail escaping its lips. It was a sound filled with yearning, a plea for recognition, for connection, for something long lost. She felt the weight of its sorrow pressing down on her. Don't stop. The old man urged, and something deep within her awoke. Without thinking, she unleashed a cascading series of notes, rich, vibrant, alive. She poured everything into the melody, her heart aligning with the shadows around her. The air thickened, almost shimmering, as if reality was bending to her will. The whispers silenced, hanging in breathless anticipation. But at that precise moment, the stranger's eyes widened in horror. No. You don't know what you're unleashing. The crowd gasped collectively as the shadows surged forward, entwined in the music, ready to roam free. What had she summoned into the world that night? The answer lurked just beyond the shadows, waiting. The piano wailed under her fingers, the notes spiraling into a frenzy as if echoing a long-suppressed scream. Each key clashed and blended with the shadows swirling now around her like a haunting dance. The crowd watched, rapt and terrified, trapped between the beauty of her sound and the supernatural threat it unveiled. A vortex of chilling whispers surrounded her, each one distinct, pleading. The specter that had lunged from the shadows stood before her, its form flickering like a candle in the wind, face twisted in an eternal expression of longing. She could feel its desperation clawing at her heart. Flashes of memories invaded her mind, snapshots of a life lost, hopes dashed, unanswered questions. Who were these souls? What had they experienced? Stop, the tall stranger bellowed, his expression seething with urgency. He moved closer, his presence a stark contrast against the flickering spirits. You don't understand. They're not just seeking release. They want vengeance. Vengeance? The word sent a jolt through her. What had she awakened? The air around her thickened with dread, yet she couldn't help but play on, compelled to explore the depths of the chiaroscuro they embodied. Every note felt like a thread, tangling her deeper into their world, weaving their sorrows into her very soul. The melody shifted, transforming in timbre and tone, lending the spirits an unfamiliar voice. The old man, eyes sparkling with conviction, encouraged her, let them speak. Give them a canvas. As her fingers moved deftly across the keys, the shadows began to dance. The crowd shifted and murmured amongst themselves, some shuddering in fear while others leaned forward in wonder, captivated by this macabre symphony. Suddenly, the specter at the forefront of the crowd wailed, its shriek slicing through the music. Release us! It cried, voice echoing like a ghostly bell tolling for the lost. Fear rippled through her, racing like an electric current. Keep going. The old man shouted, urgency etching deeper lines in his face. She felt the energy around her shift, voices rising in a cacophony of sorrow. They were not just lost, they were tormented, seeking something she couldn't yet grasp. The stranger's voice rang out, frantic desperation spilling into the night air. You're building a bridge, but it's weak. You need to hold back the power. But the connection was real, and the music surged, resonating with the souls awakening around her. Each segment of her play sliced through the night, carving out paths of light that illuminated the darkened visage of their suffering. It felt as if the very fabric of reality was pulling, stretching, threatening to snap. Then, without warning, a surge of energy blasted from the piano, pushing her back. The whispers intensified, drowning her thoughts, as the shadows lashed out, raking at the crowd. Run! The stranger bellowed. Panic rippled through the onlookers, but some remained, drawn by the unfolding chaos. The specters howled in anguish, their forms twisted and distorted, emerging fully as if freed from a shadow prison. She struggled to maintain her grip on the piano, the keys vibrating violently beneath her fingertips. Stop! She sensed a dark pressure about to collide with her, a wave of anger, grief, and despair rising to a climax. The crowd stumbled toward the exit, but she felt glued to the spot, a part of her music bound in the pull of the ethereal. In the upheaval, the old man caught her gaze, his voice steady. You're part of this. You can unravel their pain. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. The echoes of their turmoil wove like a spell around her, and suddenly, she understood. But before she could react, a clash like thunder erupted. The ground beneath them trembled. Was it the spirits? Or was something worse about to emerge from the darkness? What pried at the boundary here? The air igniting with an instinctual dread. She felt reality shift again, anticipations rising like a tide. What awaited beyond? Only one thing was certain: she had to decide now, or the shadows would claim them all. Would she risk the unknown to stand alongside the spirits? Or would she sever the bond, leaving them trapped forever? The answer teased at her mind, just out of reach. The surge intensified, crashing around her like an unfurling storm. The ground shuddered beneath her, and for a split second, her thoughts crystallized into clarity. She was the conduit, the piano was the bridge. Her anguished gaze fixed on the ethereal faces, their hollow eyes reflecting a raw, desperate energy. A monsoon of sound welled up within her. Each note she played trembled like live wires. The shadows shifted, coiling dangerously, aching to break free. Pain radiated through the air, a collective scream of lost lives demanding acknowledgement, justice. They didn't just want release, they wanted to strike back at the living for their suffering. No. Her heart raced, a wild drum in her chest, as she realized what the stranger had warned her about. The crowd was already scattering. Chaos erupted as people stumbled over each other in their haste to escape the now caged fury of tortured spirits. Help them, the old man pleaded, his voice laced with urgency. But she couldn't. That presence, that energy, demanded a price higher than she could afford. Still, she felt the tether of fate wrapping tighter around her, binding her to the spirit's desperate song. The piano wailed with a mournful vibrato, each key protesting against the chaos. With trembling hands, she modified the tune, directing its sorrow into a pulse of compassion. It was a gamble, a final effort. Would it be enough? A haunting melody blossomed, one that spoke of pain but held on to the fragile threads of hope. The specters quieted, falling into alignment with her notes, their discordant cries merging into a haunting harmony. But she wasn't the only one tapping into power. From the corners of her vision, shadows flickered with darker intentions. They pulsated with a ravenous hunger, sensing the music's awakening magic. No, stay away. She gasped, panic surging up her throat. The stranger lunged forward, arms outstretched, pulled it together. You're wrestling their souls. Each word he threw at her felt like an anchor, urging her to focus. The furnace of music burned bright, but the waves of darkness were relentless, clawing at her. Suddenly, the specters regained some of their shape, their features sharp and defined, twisted by anger and sorrow. The woman who had once smiled in a sunlit garden now wept bitter tears, and the old man with sunken cheeks bore the weight of regret. She could see that they carried years of grief, anger, and loss, and their plea was undeniable. Vengeance was lurking, and it hungered for a blood debt. Why do you press on? One spirit snarled, its face morphing into a mask of rage. We were wronged, and you stand in the way of our justice. No. The old man shouted, raising his voice through the chaos. It's not justice you seek. It's peace. With that, her resolve stiffened. She wasn't here to play savior or deliverer, she was a witness, an artist called to document their pain, not unleash it. The music crescendoed, pushing against the tides of darkness, morphing into something raw and wild. Then, from the corner of the hall, a glimmer caught her eye. A door, barely ajar, pulsed with an otherworldly light. Could it hold the answer? A way to guide the spirits back to peace or to confront the darkness threatening them all. Fear gnawed at her stomach, but so did a fierce determination. She couldn't ignore that light, not now, not when so much was at stake. Would stepping through that threshold lead to salvation, or would it plunge her deeper into chaos, unearthing demons she couldn't hope to tame? The question lingered, heavy in the charged air, as she found her fingers hesitating over the keys, teetering on the brink of decision. The air was electric, charged with anticipation and dread. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, urging her to act or be swept away. The old man's voice faded into a haunting murmur, consumed by the chaos around them. "Don't focus on me," he shouted against the mounting panic. "Focus on the music. Find the melody that will set them free." Her mind raced as she strained to listen, the cacophony of wails and whispers spiraling into a vortex of sorrow. The darkness at the edges felt relentless, clawing at her like a beast desperate to devour the light. But that door, it beckoned to her, its glow flickering like the heartbeat of a dying star. What lay beyond that threshold? Could it be the salvation they all sought? Or a trap, set by forces beyond her understanding to lure her deeper into the abyss? With a surge of defiance, she pressed her fingers down on the keys, the familiar coolness grounding her in the storm of shadows. The melody danced into the despair, weaving through the ghostly lament a thread of hope. "Come on, come on," she whispered to herself, urging the spirits to listen. "Just trust me." Suddenly, the spirits seemed to sway, their anger wavering momentarily, caught in the delicate web of her notes. It was then that the old man stepped closer, his face taut with desire and dread. "Keep playing," he cried out, but the darkness surged again, a seething tide, desperate and unyielding. It lashed out, a surge of chilling whispers clamoring for dominion. "You think you can spare them, girl? You play with fire." Her voice shook as she shouted back, "No. I want to let you take them. Not as long as I can play." The music pierced the fray, rising, elevating, lifting like wings breaking free from shackled roots. The glow from the ajar door intensified its light, more vibrant than ever, filling the hall with an unearthly radiance. The spirits writhed as if caught in a tempest, frustration and confusion mingling with the sorrow of their former lives. She could sense the balance shifting. Was it her music? Was it the door? The ground beneath her vibrated as the echoes of cries transformed into a yearning symphony, a plea for understanding, a desire for closure. "Stay with me," she commanded, pouring herself into the melody, feeling the weight of 1,000 souls surging through her veins. With every key pressed, she shaped their anguish into something more than mere legend, a tapestry of loss stitched with threads of hope. But just then, a figure materialized from the darkness, cloaked in shadows, a watcher, a guardian of the threshold. "You shouldn't meddle, girl," it hissed, voice like a snake coiling in her ear. "You can't save them. Let them embrace their vengeance." "No." The word exploded from her chest, hot and furious. "They need peace, not more suffering." The blaring tension built as the music battled against the shadows. Waves of darkness crashed, battering against her fragile unity, but she couldn't back down. Not now. Not when she was so close. And then, a shadowy hand reached out, grasping for something, anything that it could destroy. She could feel the weight of its ancient sorrow pressing down on her. Would her music break through? Or would she lose herself to the rage brewing within those tortured spirits? As the crescendo peaked, she glimpsed again that blinding light just beyond the door, pushing against the darkness. If she could only make the final leap, that thought flared bright, taking hold, guiding her through the haze, daring her to cross the threshold. Could she risk everything for the chance at true salvation? Or would that final note expose her to a destiny even darker than she feared? Time stretched thin, and she, just like the spirits, stood on the precipice of a choice that could change everything. The melody surged, a beacon cutting through the tumult. She was on the edge, teetering between realms, where hope and despair waged an unending war. She didn't just play the notes, she poured every ounce of her soul into them, feeding life into the fabric of sorrow that surrounded her. The guardian loomed closer, its visage only partially formed, swirling with dark tendrils, a figure made from nightmares. "What you seek is beyond your grasp," it hissed, each word dripping with malice. "You think music can exorcise the pain? Your notes will only awaken the fury." "No," she yelled, her voice trembling but unwavering. "Music is the voice of the forgotten. They deserve peace." The darkness pulsed as if waiting for her to falter. Shadows flicked at her fingertips, whispering threats, promises of what would happen if she failed. But she was done listening to fear. Fueled by urgency, she shifted her focus, letting the melodies take her deeper. The notes twisted and turned, wrapping around the spirits like a warm embrace. To her astonishment, they began to respond. Their movements slowed, their wailing morphed into a haunting harmony blending with her tune. "That's it," she murmured, realizing she was building a bridge to their souls, to their histories, but then it happened, a crack of thunder, violent and deafening. The guardian howled in rage. "You dare defy the laws? You will suffer for this." Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and a chilling wave washed over her, thick like fog. She hesitated, glancing at the door again. Was salvation within reach? Or was it a siren song, luring her into deeper danger? "Keep playing," the old man urged, "don't let fear hold you back." His eyes shone with the wisdom of countless battles fought against despair. With renewed determination, she let her fears dissipate. She forged ahead. Every key reverberated like a heartbeat, shaking the very foundations of her surroundings. The door shone brighter, the light spilling warmth and resolve, inching against the overwhelming dark around her. "Come with me," she cried to the spirits, her fingers dancing faster over black and white, summoning their whispers into a coherent voice. "Let go of your pain. Step into the light." They were fighting back, their sorrow mingling with the melody, creating a harmony that transcended the chaos. It felt alive, the spirits were waking, awakening memories long buried beneath layers of rage, but as the crescendo peaked, the guardian roared, its form expanding, shadows clawing at the edges of the music. "You cannot save them, nor yourself," it bellowed, a tempest ready to unleash its fury. Just then, she spotted the flicker of movement behind the door, a silhouette beckoning her forward. Was it a spirit? Or something more sinister? Desperation surged within her, pulling her closer to that luminous edge. With one last push, she concentrated harder, drawing from the depths of her core. The melody transformed, morphing into a desperate plea: "Let go, find peace." The shadows shrieked, contorting into a hurricane of anger. Waves of darkness crashed against her resolve, testing her strength. And then, as she played through the chaos, she felt it, a shift in the atmosphere, the air thickening with anticipation. What would emerge from this clash? Would the door's light swallow the darkness, or was there a price to pay? With the final notes soaring into a spine-tingling climax, she braced herself for the answer, heart racing, ready for whatever lay beyond the threshold, even if it meant losing everything. As the last chord reverberated through the hall, both light and darkness coalesced, and the real question hit her: what if she wasn't the one who needed to decide who would be saved? The answer loomed closer as shadows danced in the flickering light, and she realized it was far more complicated than she'd ever imagined. The doorway shimmered, an ethereal portal caught between two worlds. The shadows screeched, twisting and writhing as if they were being pulled apart. She could feel their pain as if it breathed her own air, making her heart pound louder. Each note lingered in the air, vibrating with raw emotion, but the lingering echoes began to split, the warmth of the light now battling the icy touch of despair. "Do it! Finish the song!" the old man shouted, desperation tinging his voice. His frail hands clutched the edge of a nearby table, the wood splintering under the pressure. She inhaled deeply, driving herself to rise above the chaos around her. The guardian, vast and indestructible, loomed larger with each passing heartbeat, its serpent-like shadows slithering closer, threatening to drag her into darkness. Suddenly, a chilling thought struck her: was it possible the guardian was right? What if her desperate plea didn't summon salvation, but unleashed an anger that was long buried? Her fingers danced on the keys, trembling yet resolute, breathing every ounce of faith into the melody. The spirits swirled around her, their forms flickering like candle lights, anything but ghostly. They were fighting too, their anger melding with her song. But their faces haunted, desperate gnawed at her heart. Were they pulling away from the light or embracing it? As the music soared, shadows encroached, clawing at her, a tangible presence that threatened to shred her focus. Every note resonated in defiance. A surreal tension filled the air, and time stretched, each moment layered with urgency. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing everything she had left into the final crescendo. "Let go," she commanded, not just to the spirits but to herself. She couldn't let doubt seep into her heart. She was the bridge. She wasn't finished yet. The guardian hissed, more serpentine now, and the shadows morphed into anguished faces, swirling around her like dark wisps. "You think you can reshape their fate?" It sneered, banging against the walls of her mind. "You will lose yourself." But with the final note whispering through her heart, she struck the key with an intensity born of desperation. A blast of white light erupted from the doorway, bursting forth like a supernova, illuminating the hall in a radiant glow. It was overwhelming, a cacophony of sound and vision, the melody swallowing the shadows and scattering them like leaves in the wind. But in that blinding blaze, she glimpsed a hidden truth. Faces, flickering in and out of her sight, twisted with sorrow yet alive with possibility. Each spirit carried a story, a shared weight that echoed in the echoes of their cries. They yearned for recognition, and her song became their voice, lifting their grief into the air, transforming despair into something more profound. Just as abruptly, the eruption ebbed. The light grew softer, enveloping her in a cocoon of warmth. The guardian reeled, a primal scream vibrating through the air as the darkness began to dissolve like ink in water, leaving behind wisps and shadows that seemed to float toward the door. "Now!" the old man cried, his voice barely a thread above the growing silence. "Now is your chance." But amidst the radiant glow, figures emerged, obscured and ambiguous. They were familiar yet strange, swirling in and out of focus. Struggling between the gloaming realms, she felt a pulse of conflict, each spirit's essence intertwining with her own. Were they seeking her help? Or were they hungry for vengeance? As she hesitated, the light grew dim. The guardian's voice thundered once more, laced with rage, "You have not yet escaped. This will not end here." With her heart racing, she was torn. Should she trust the spirits and follow them through the door, or could she turn back and face the wrath of the darkness? The choice weighed heavily on her, and as shadows flickered at the edges, she knew that the moment to decide had come. Would she step forward into the unknown? Or remain a prisoner of fate? The struggle was far from over, and the answer lay hidden in the depths of their shared history. The shadows absorbed every flicker of light, thrumming like a live wire beneath her fingertips. Panic surged through her, constricting her chest as she weighed the silent call of the spirits against the daunting specter of the guardian. Time seemed to halt, every heartbeat loud in her ears, each second stretching like an eternity. For a heartbeat, her resolve faltered. The spirits. They were close enough to touch, yet distant enough to evoke trepidation. Were they the salvation she sought, or a trap that would ensnare her soul? The old man's voice faded into the background, a distant echo filled with urgency. "Time is running out." With a slow, steadying breath, she reached out toward the doorway. The silvery light beckoned like a lover, promising warmth and freedom. But still, doubt lingered in her gut, heavy and cold. She had to know. "Why are you here?" she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the veils of uncertainty. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, morphing into distorted images, snippets of souls caught in moments of despair. Faces flashed before her, a young girl, clutching a doll with vacant, tear-streaked cheeks, an old woman with eyes dulled by grief, a man, lips pressed tight in a silent scream. Each visage bore a story, a lament that twisted like barbed wire around her heart, the guardian's laughter ripped through the air, a cruel sound that was fueled by their sorrow. You ask them why? They're here for you. They crave what your life has taken from them. Who are you to decide their fate? Her breath hitched. She didn't know. Stepping back from the door felt like choosing death. But stepping forward? What kind of entity could she unleash? Enough! She shouted, gathering every ounce of strength. I'll not be caged by your fear tactics. You will not control me. With renewed purpose, she slammed her hands down on the piano keys. The discordant notes rang out, sharp and raw. Each chord battled the shadows, a defiance that rippled through the air, piercing the thick veil of doubt. The spirits surged, echoing her melody. Their voices melded with hers, harmonizing in a growing crescendo. Suddenly, the room vibrated with their collective grief, an explosion of sound that enveloped her in a wave of emotion. Tears streamed down her face, each note cleansing, purging her uncertainty. But just when hope surged, the guardian howled in rage. It lashed out, tendrils of darkness snaking into the flow of music, seeking to drown her song. Foolish girl! You think your melody holds power? You are merely a child playing in the depths. The walls trembled, shadows bending toward her as if drawn by a magnetic force. But she didn't relent. She played on, threading strands of light through the dark, drawing each spirit closer, weaving their pain into a living tapestry of sound and fury. Join me! She implored, extending her arms, desperate for connection. The spirits swirled around her, vibrant now, no longer just figments of sorrow but vibrant echoes of life. Fueled by her determination, they began to push against the darkness, shattering the oppressive weight that hung in the air, yet, before they could escape, a deafening crack echoed through the hall. The doorway began to pulse, bright then dim, like a heartbeat gasping for air. Each pulse split the shadows, revealing a glimpse of the other side, a world saturated in color and warmth, untouched by despair. Do you hear that? She shouted against the tide of sound, we can break free. Together. But the guardian was furious. It lashed out, and as darkness rushed in to claw them back, she felt a sudden, violent pull. The ground beneath her rumbled, fissures webbing through the floor, threatening to swallow her whole. The choice loomed again, fierce and raw. She could dive into the light, carry the spirits with her, or stay and battle the encroaching darkness. What was her choice? Would she risk everything for freedom, or cling to the shadows just to fight? As the light flickered, illuminating her path, she knew she had to decide, but what if the price of that choice was greater than she could imagine? The swirling shadows danced around her, desperate and monstrous. They filled her vision, writhing and hungry, but she remained anchored to the piano. Her fingers moved almost of their own accord, striking keys with ferocity, pouring her spirit into the music that sparked against the heavy darkness. Each note felt like a lifeline thrown into chaos, echoing her resolve against the suffocating anguish surrounding her. Don't stop! The old man cried out, his voice thick with urgency. You're breaking through. With every chord, she could feel the tension shift. The spirits swayed closer, drawn toward the melody like moths to a flame. Their anguished cries merged with her song, straining toward some tethered release. She locked eyes with the forms swirling in the darkness. They were not just shadows of the lost, they were hearts yearning to be set free, yet the guardian loomed ever larger, snapping at the edges of her resolve. This is madness. It roared, a voice thick with chaos and despair. You think you can control them? They will consume you. No. She shouted, her voice slicing through the din. They want to be consumed. I want to let that happen. She fought against the currents of fear that curled around her life like barbed wire. Instinct kicked in, igniting an unyielding strength. She began to play with intent, weaving a melody that wasn't just sound. This was their hope. Their rage transformed into rhythm, and with every pulse of music, she felt them responding, rallying around her like a chorus raised up from the grave. Suddenly, the ground split beneath her, a dark chasm tearing at the edges of reality. She felt a pull, a swirling void threatening to suck her down. "Hold on!" she cried, and with one final fearless stroke, she struck the keys hard. The sound rang out like a thunderclap, echoing through the alley, and was met with a shockwave that pushed against the darkness. The guardian recoiled, shadows spilling back as shards of light broke through the oppressive fog. From deep within that light, she could hear a familiar harmony and ancient resonance that whispered of peace, of connection, of forgiveness. It was beautiful. The spirits swirled, their features growing more defined, emotions shifting from anguish to recognition. Something clicked, a bridge forming where there had been a gaping chasm of despair. The specters reached toward her, hands stretched out, faces alight with the reflection of something long lost. "Join us!" they called, their voices rising in a crescendo that thrust the darkness back further. "Release us!" The camaraderie swelled her heart, a glowing ember of hope igniting within. This was not about vengeance. It never was. It was about understanding, healing, finding peace after the torment. Her resolve hardened, unbreakable. "Let go of your pain," she implored, bridging the specters and the living world with her music. With a final, thunderous note, the last remnants of despair melted into a radiant light. The shadows writhed, thrashing one last time, before splitting and retreating back into the abyss. She felt the presence of the guardian dissipate, a final scream echoing as it disappeared into the folds of nothingness. The thousands of pinpricks of darkness dissolved like smoke against her melody. The air shimmered, filled with a warm, profound silence. As the light swept through the alley, the spirits exploded into whirlwinds of sparkling dust, ascending into the night sky like fireflies breaking free. Their faces brightened in joy and contentment, a collective weight lifting. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to drift with their release, feeling their stories flow through her in waves of love for life, for connection, for leaving behind sorrow. When she finally opened her eyes, she found herself alone in the alley, the battered piano seeming oddly still in the face of quiet aftermath. The shadows had retreated, and the night was peaceful once more. The old man sat beside her, tears glistening in his wise eyes. "You did it," he said softly, a proud smile breaking through. "You gave them their voices back." She felt a rush of warmth wash over her. "I didn't know what I was doing," she whispered, breath catching. But the truth was, she had found her way, guided by the spirit's yearning in her own heart. The air around them was thick with relief. In their quiet moment of triumph, she rose, resolved to leave behind what had once felt insurmountable. Slowly, she stepped back into the vibrant streets of New Orleans, letting the sounds of life envelop her, feeling profoundly changed. As she turned back for one last glance, an unmistakable feeling fluttered around her heart, understanding that sometimes, it takes the echoes of the past to guide the present. Her embrace of vulnerability had forged a connection that neither time nor death could sever. Together, with each note she played, she could still hear the whispers of their stories, a beautiful reminder of what it means to be alive. Now, before you go, I need you to do something huge. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories, smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and I want to see you flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know how this story ends. You need to support the channel and show your love.